it's quite interesting talking about another media future or new media leader that has done a contrast interview. So BBC went in and did this absolute hit piece, and like Dr. Rod said, the old style of journalism is this really attack type style of leadership. Of media or journalism. Whereas there's a new person in town called Patrick Bet-David, and he has an organization called Valuetainment, doing incredible things. He recently interviewed with Andrew Tate. Now, it's a 4.5-hour interview, and I've not had a chance to watch the whole interview. I've watched kind of small segments of it, but planning on watching it over the next couple of days. But it was released today or yesterday, I think it was. And it's interesting, this 4.5-hour interview versus a 40-minute, as Dr. Rod said, like a 38-minute video of the BBC one, where it was just a hit piece, where Patrick Bet-Davies, PBD as he's nicknamed, he actually went to spend that time. He said he spent a total of like 7 hours interview, or 7+ hours interviewing Andrew Tate. There was a whole bunch of stuff they had to redact because of his court case, etc. But they said that they'll release that after the court case is over. But spending 4.5 hours with someone, his approach is not about making a hit piece, not about attacking, not coming to prove Andrew Tate wrong. He's going to have a conversation. He's going to find out. That's Patrick Bet-Davies there. He's going there to learn from Andrew, trying to understand him, trying to get his take, because and this is what I feel is this next generation of leaders in media, and also just in leadership in general. There's a little bit of comparison that old school leaders, just like in old school media, it was all about attacking. It's all about control. It's all about command. It's all about authority. Whereas the new style, the new generation of leadership is actually more about understanding. What if we took the time to understand the people we're leading rather than just bossing them around, rather than just being a dictator around them? What if we actually got to understand them? And that's one thing that I love about Patrick Bet-Davies is he actually speaks to a lot of people from all different sides of the aisle, so to speak. And all what he does is he just asks questions. He gives a little bit of his opinion, but he just asks questions. And so I think it's quite interesting that I wanted to highlight this kind of like this next level media leader in Patrick Bet-Davies. Because you can see this contrast between BBC and then what PBD did, and there's a stark contrast. As I said, all links to all these articles and videos and everything are below. But Dr. Rod, how do we have this new generation leadership where we're, instead of authoritarian, we're building relationships, we're forming understanding, everything. How do we do that while still actually achieving an outcome? Because there can be this overcorrection to, we're all friends, we're all buddy. It's a kumbaya circle, right? We all sit around the water cooler and just talk all day, because that's the contrast to the authoritarianism. How do we build relationship, gain understanding from people while avoiding that, friendly but not familiar, that kind of saying?
Well, look, I think what we see in that particular interview by Patrick Bet-David is a genuine conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And look, one of the beauties, of course, of social media is that you're not constrained by any kind of timetable. So he can record over 4.5-hour conversation and publish it. Yep. It's up to us if we want to stick with him and watch the whole thing. Whereas BBC and the legacy media in general, particularly those that are still operating on a free-to-air basis, they have programs. And everything they do is edited right down. So they might have 4 or 5 hours of video, it's all edited down to, a 10-minute segment on a current affairs program, or worse, if it's in the news, if you're interviewed, in all likelihood, they'll take at most a 7 or 8 second grab. So their circumstances are very different. But in the case of social media, Bet David's one example. There are many, many others, hundreds, in fact. There are hundreds and hundreds. But they have the luxury of being able to speak as long as they like.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great strengths of this new media. And I think the leadership in the new media, the influence in the new media, is actually going to come from the quality of the content. And so, a 4-hour recorded conversation with somebody, that can be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? Or it could be rubbish. But the same can be said of something which is only a few minutes minutes long. The other thing about it too, of course, is that we have the power to turn it off.
Yes.
So there's a degree of democratization of the media as well. And we now have a lot of power. It's in our broadcast last week, I was talking about consumer sovereignty, the idea that the consumer has dollars and time and actually has the power to allocate those. Of course, the establishment don't like that because they want to control our dollars and our time. But one of the great things about social media is that I can spend money on it if I want.
Yeah.
And I can spend time on it if I want. But if I don't like what I'm seeing, I just hit the off button.
Yes.
I love it. It's just fantastic.
Or you just continue to scroll.
Yeah, exactly. But so from a leadership position, I think the real crux of the issue is what you're doing quality.
Yeah.
And you can be very challenging. You can challenge people's ideas. You can challenge people's positions. So you don't have to necessarily serve up what you think the people want either. But Bet David, I think, does a marvellous job. I mean, I'm not going to have time to sit through a 4.5-hour interview. But I'll tell you what I do. I'm one of these people who doesn't need a lot of sleep. And I'll often put on a podcast or something like this. I'll put it on at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I won't necessarily watch the video, but just take the audio. I'll listen to that for a few hours. It's great. And sometimes I fall asleep too, by the way.
Yeah.
But see, we can do that.
Partly you hope that they're a little bit boring interviews so that you can get to sleep. Yeah, see,
there are some people I don't listen to at 2:00 in the morning because they're too stimulating.
And so, well, I hope you're not listening to any of my stuff then at 2:00 in the morning.
No, I don't.
I hope you find that I'm stimulating. I find that with these sorts of, I love long form media like this because I actually chuck it on and then have a waterproof speaker and it's in the bathroom.
Yes,
so while I'm getting ready, I'll just be listening to the content and I suppose that kind of goes to what I wrote down here is learning, right? I think it seems like old school media, they are on a mission to prove their point. Whereas it seems like the new media, like people like Patrick Davies and Joe Rogan, who we'll actually speak a little bit about later and everything like that, they're on this trend to learn. They speak to experts, to authorities, to other people, and you can tell that they're having a conversation purely to learn. Well, not purely, but there is a genuine interest in wanting to actually learn from that person. And I think that that's one place that we as leaders make mistakes is we can tend to, we get caught up in thinking that because we're the leader, we have to know it all. So this means we can't learn anything. And so I feel like we as leaders need to make sure that we are. When I was going through a university degree, there was one thing that was drilled into us. It was an education degree. Was this statement of lifelong learner, and it was just something that was drilled into my brain that yes, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lifelong learner. I'm doing a podcast here But you'll notice I'm just asking Dr. Rod questions because I just want to learn from him, right? And so I made it public because I wanted you to be able to learn from him too. And maybe I've got my 2 cents to add to something, but every interaction I have, I try to learn. Now, I don't always. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I go into a situation where I have my ego pants on and I just think that I'm there to teach and I'm not there to learn. And I'll guarantee that coming out of that interaction, I know that I have not benefited from that interaction. And the other person probably hasn't benefited from it much either. As leaders, we can't go in trying to prove a point. We have to go in to gain understanding, to gain learning. And talking about learning, a little bit of a shameless plug. You've seen it pop up a couple of times. The QR code on your screen, link in description. We have a free leadership, faith-based leadership development program that helps, first of all, spend some time to help you discover what your purpose is, how your purpose is integrated into your leadership, and then how you can use your purpose and your leadership to facilitate other people discovering and fulfilling their purposes as well. Free, link in description. Go and check it out. Shameless plug. Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube with Leadership podcast. If you've liked that, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any thoughts of how it challenged or helped your leadership, put a comment below. And we'd be honored if you would consider subscribing for more leadership content. Also, make sure you check out the playlist for more episodes like this.